We've said it before and we're saying it again. What do the royals do now about Prince Andrew?
He's in a very, very difficult position. I think he would like his younger brother to fall on his sword.
The pressure shows no sign of easing more than a week after he stopped being a duke.
They hoped that would draw sort of a line under this, and instead it sort of snowballed.
Will he stay in his home, Royal Lodge in Windsor?
Well, he lives there rent-free.
It is very difficult to remove him or for him to move out.
Say very difficult, but the king's the king. Will Parliament step in to strip him of his titles?
If MPs are talking about the royal family, something's gone a bit wrong.
It's creating that perfect storm.
I don't think we've heard the end of it.
Hello and welcome to Talking Royals. I'm Charlene White and I'm joined as ever by Chris and Lizzie. And also Ailsa Anderson is back with us. For our YouTube viewers, they'll be well used to seeing you in the studio. But for our ITV viewers, it's their first time.
A new surprise.
Yes.
For them. Yes. Don't tune out.
Oh no, they'll love having you with us. Now, I've been away for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, welcome back. It's
Thank
nice
you
to
very
see
much.
you.
Yeah,
We
lovely to see you. We've missed you very much.
You've been hanging out in Rome, and I'm really pleased to say that you remembered what our little thing is, and that's every time you go away, you bring back something
we do, don't we? Yeah.
from that country or city. And you brought cannolis, haven't you?
We did, yes. We brought them for you, especially.
But did you buy them in Rome, though, Chris?
Maybe, you know what happens when you get to the airport and you forget, and then someone then goes and buys it more locally?
Essentially, you got it from the Italian deli down the road.
Yeah, essentially.
I mean, I know I've been away for a couple of weeks, but the rules are very specific.
We didn't even buy it, actually. The
Wow.
team bought
Yeah.
it, yeah.
All the secrets are coming
Listen,
out now.
it's the thought that counts. So,
Look,
yeah.
this is raw, this show, raw and real, and we're just
Yeah.
going to own it, OK? We forgot.
OK, you forgot.
We were too busy covering the
I wait
visit.
for 5 minutes and it all goes all over the shop. Right, now it has been a super busy week, and there's loads of stuff that I need you guys to update me on because there's a lot for everyone to keep across. We'll talk about Rome and the reason why you were there in just a second, but we have to start off with
let me
Prince
guess.
Andrew.
Yes.
And breathe.
And breathe. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? So last Friday, we got the announcement from Buckingham Palace that he was no longer going to use his titles. Now that, when I use that word very carefully, because he still owns the titles, he still has them. If they were sort of to be able to be pinned to him, they can't be unpinned. So all that he's done is agreed with the king to stop using his titles. That has kicked off a debate in the House of Commons. MPs are saying, well, actually, why don't we have a new law so we can actually remove the title from him? And then that kicked off another debate about, but where's he living and what's he paying to live there? And perhaps we should ask the Prime Minister about it, Prime Minister's questions. And there we go. The Palace are never happy. I'm sure Ailsa will remember this. If MPs are talking about the royal family in the House of Commons, something's gone a bit wrong.
Well, yeah, because what a lot of people who don't know, but they should know exactly what your previous jobs have been. You were press secretary to the Queen.
I was.
And so what would have been your reaction if something like this has kicked off in Parliament whilst you were still working?
Probably looking for another job, actually. But it's the worst case scenario. I mean, when people are debating this in Parliament and asking questions, it's actually, it's taking the shine off all the good work that the monarchy and the royal family are doing. So it's, it's creating that perfect storm even further.
Well, let's take a listen to exactly what they said.
Mr. Speaker, given the revelations about Royal Lodge, does the Prime Minister agree that this House needs to properly scrutinise the Crown Estate to ensure taxpayers' interests are protected? The Chancellor herself has said that the current arrangements are wrong. So will the Prime Minister support a select committee inquiry so all those involved can be called for evidence, including the current occupant?
Prime Minister.
Well, it's important in relation to all properties, Crown properties, that there is proper scrutiny. I certainly support that.
OK, so for our international viewers, let me explain who that was. That's Ed Davey, who's the leader of the Liberal Democrats, and he was talking to the Prime Minister about Royal Lodge. Lizzie, explain to people exactly what Royal Lodge is and exactly who the current occupant is that Ed Davey was talking about.
So Royal Lodge is where Prince Andrew lives with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. And he has what he calls a cast iron lease on Royal Lodge with the Crown Estate. And he took out that lease lease in 2003 when he paid £1 million for the lease, and he paid £7.5 million for renovations. And what we have learnt this week is because of those terms of agreement, he has subsequently only been paying what's known as a peppercorn in rent ever since. So for the last 20 odd years, and that
and the
is
peppercorn
what
means nothing.
is,
Actually, it says it quite clearly in the reports. It says annual rent nil, open brackets, peppercorn, close brackets. In other words,
So
he lives there rent free.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to clarify this. He did pay the effective £8.5 million that would otherwise have to come out of the Crown estate.
Okay.
He did the repairs for them, and then said for the next 75 years, I don't have to pay.
and now that lease goes on until 2078. He's got a long time on that lease, and the terms of the lease say that as long as Prince Andrew maintains the upkeep of the property and the repairs and the renovations, then he is within the terms of the lease, and therefore it is very difficult to remove him or for him to move out.
Say very difficult, but the king's the king. And I think for a lot of people, they'll sit there and say, but he's the king. If he wants somebody to not live in a certain location anymore, surely he has the power to where you're able to make that happen, no, Ailsa?
One would think so, but obviously he's in a very, very difficult position. And I think he would like his younger brother, to fall on his sword and actually move out and make the decision himself. But it seems to me that he's really digging his heels in at the moment, and he doesn't want to go. He's not going to be shifted.
In that statement last week from Prince Andrew, he said he acknowledged that he had become a distraction to the work of the royal family. And I think that they hoped that that statement and him agreeing that he would no longer use the titles and the honours would draw sort of a line under this and allow them to move on and concentrate on the work of the royal family. And instead what's happened is it's sort of snowballed, and this week it has actually ramped up, if anything, and we've still got all these questions. There's been YouGov polls all week. One said that 80% of the public wanted him to formally give up those titles, and then we've got it in Parliament as well. It's just gone on and on.
So, Lizzie, this story has gone on for 15 years. This it broke in 2010 when I was the press secretary.
There, yeah.
Okay, so in 2010, would you have thought that this story about Prince Andrew, because this was around the time of the photograph coming out of him and Jeffrey Epstein in Central Park in New York, would you have thought that in 15 years' time, the royal family would be at times this week, I'm not saying it was the end of the monarchy, but it felt really destabilising in the middle of the week, didn't it?
It did. And no, I don't think anyone could have predicted this story is continuing 15 years later and the erosion, the damage it is doing.
Well, I think that, but perhaps, public opinion in the way that public opinion has perhaps changed in recent years, that it feels as though people don't want this story to be forgotten. They actually want something to happen now. And do you think, Chris, there's an element of perhaps the royal family not necessarily realising exactly where public opinion is at right now?
There might be a bit of that. I think that they knew that there was this big important visit coming up this week that we'll talk about later of the King going to see the Pope at the Vatican. And they thought by getting it out on Friday evening, and Ailsa will know this, I'm sure you do the planning, well, that might bleed into Saturday. Maybe the Sundays would do a bit of a long read, but by Monday, hopefully, it would all fizzled out. But what happened was on Sunday, there was another story about an email saying that Prince Andrew had allegedly asked one of his press officers, suggesting he was going to get his protection officer, a police protection officer, to look into his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. And that's not the job of a police protection officer, let's be clear. He's there, paid for by the taxpayer, to look after members of the royal family.
So, Chris, what exactly has Prince Andrew had to say about all the events over the past?
Well, not very much. We obviously reached out to his office with these new allegations. We haven't heard back from him, but throughout this entire process, he's always denied all the allegations that have been made against him, and he's never been convicted in a court of law of any crime whatsoever.
Yeah, and he has always said that the lease at Royal Lodge is watertight.
Tuesday, you had the publication of the book by Virginia Giuffre, which is now a posthumous memoir, of course, because she died by suicide earlier this year. That gave it a new lease of life, and the ghostwriter was then doing interviews.
You're in no doubt about the claims that she makes about Prince Andrew, not just knowing her, but abusing her.
I have no doubt. I've been a journalist for 30 years. I've worked at magazines, newspapers. I understand fact-checking. We had a professional fact-checker go over this after my own meticulous research. I have no doubt of what we assert in this book.
I mean, either the palace didn't know about all of this stuff coming up, or they underestimated the public anger.
And actually, talking about Rome, when you were in Rome, it was a real indication of just how international this story is, because you picked up a copy of Virginia Giuffre's book in a bookshop in Rome, didn't you?
Yes, same name, Nobody's Girl, just under the cover here. But the rest of it, of course, is in Italian. My Italian's not particularly good. But in other words, this memoir, a posthumous memoir by Virginia Giuffre, is being sold around the world, which means the Prince Andrew story is known around the world, and that was clearly the worry of the King and Buckingham Palace, that this big event would be overshadowed.
But do you know what, though? What it didn't do, I don't believe, is completely overshadow the importance of this visit to Rome, because all of us at some point during our school life, when we're doing history at school, we've all learned about Henry VIII, and we've all learned about, him wanting to divorce Catherine of Aragon, and the Catholic Church not allowing him to. So he decided to just create his own church and become the head of that and divorce her anyway. I sort of feel like, Ailsa, I mean, obviously you used to work, used to be the press secretary for the former Archbishop of Canterbury.
I thought you were going to say she was the press secretary for Henry VIII.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past her, to be honest, Chris. Really, wouldn't put it past her.
I was worried. I was clearly going to correct you.
But then I really feel like all this history that some of us stayed awake for in school, some of us didn't, is really coming back to life in 2025, that we really understand the impact of that decision on 500 years of our history.
It's absolutely extraordinary. So I've been to Rome before and prayed with the Pope and the Archbishop, which is an absolutely extraordinary thing to do. Wow. So there's been real ecumenical sort of, movement between the Church of England and the Catholic Church, and this has really culminated in this most extraordinary, moment of prayer, joint prayer together with the King and the Queen and the Pope.
It was a really, really significant moment for the King personally, but also for what he was doing. That moment of prayer, as Ailsa says, that is the first time the head of the Catholic Church and the head of the Church of England have prayed together since the Reformation for 500 years. It was a really important moment. And normally we don't show pictures of members of the royal family in prayer, but it was decided that this moment was so important that it would be captured and we would be allowed to show those images.
And what was it like for you guys being there and seeing this happen? Because, of course, I'm still on this side of the world because I didn't get to travel with you guys. But what was it like for you being there and watching this happen? Because for me, it seemed like a really beautiful moment.
I think you could tell this meant a lot to the King in terms of him personally, because he's a man of deep faith and he's worked a lot to bring, various religions as well as different denominations together. It also meant a lot to the Pope for the beginning of his papacy, because he was setting out quite clearly there that, okay, I'm going to do this joint act of worship with someone else. Remember, they're both unusually heads of state and heads of church, and that's quite unusual. And together praying as they did was important for both men. And just sitting there underneath, in that beautiful, beautiful Sistine Chapel, underneath, all that marvellous work that Michelangelo did all those years ago. It was really quite a moment. The Queen herself was wearing a mantilla, a church veil, which is worn to show deference and respect to the Pope. And it really felt like a big, big moment. And a lot of people say a long time coming. Why is it taking them so long?
I saw some facts and figures earlier in the week was saying sort of even until the 1950s, it was frowned upon for Catholics to go into Church of England buildings and vice versa. So yes, we may say it's the first time this particular situation has happened in 500 years, but that tension between the two has been there, within modern history as well, hasn't it, Ailsa?
Yes, absolutely. But I remember the late Queen, when she did a visit to Northern Ireland, she started off in a Protestant church, then she crossed the road, and you guys will remember this, and went to a Catholic church. So the late Queen was also someone who wanted to bring both these faiths together, and faith was really, really important.
You think about, I've thought a lot about this week, about sort of what the King's legacy will be. And one of the things he's worked really hard at as King, but also as Prince of Wales, is unifying, of bringing people together across faiths, across institutions. They talk about the King having these sort of 4 C's that are the cornerstones of his work, and one of those is community. And that's what you're seeing here, bringing communities together and that unifying role that he really plays.
Because we can see around the world that especially when it comes to religion, when there is a lot of upset between people of different faiths, it causes such destruction around the world. world. So to see the king trying to unify faiths is quite a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's important to point out that actually they were building on the work that's come before them. Queen Elizabeth did a lot of this, as well as previous popes had done a lot of this work. But it was always considered a step too far for the heads of both churches to pray together. That's why this moment was so significant. But they were building on a lot of work that's been done for some considerable time between the two arms of the Christian faith. But I have to say, it was actually quite a moment. And I know that Buckingham Palace were just pleased that the Prince Andrew story paused for long enough for the events in Rome to get a proper airing, if you like, but it came dangerously close to overshadowing the whole thing.
Now the king has been so busy this week because not only did he just fly back from Rome, he then went straight into meeting President Zelensky again this morning.
He did, and that's actually the third time he has seen President Zelensky this year. He saw him once at Sandringham, and this is the second time he has hosted him at Windsor Castle. And the royal family
have just rent a room in there. Number of times he's rocking up.
The royal family really have shown their support very publicly for Ukraine since the conflict began.
Now, I tell you what, for a man that is still going through treatment. I know we keep saying it every time, Chris. I know we keep saying it every time, but it's a heavy schedule he's done this week. And, you would think that he would want to add something else onto the tail end of that, especially what's been happening regarding the stresses I imagine the family's having to go through at the moment. But he is still racking up those public appearances and doing, the soft power that he does.
Well, actually, the start of the week, he was in Manchester at the synagogue, which was the scene of that dreadful attack just a few weeks earlier, showing his support for the Jewish community and everything that they've suffered as a result of that terror attack. So to go from that, he had another event on Tuesday connected to a Balkans conference, Wednesday flying to Rome, Thursday all the events we've just spoken about, and Friday seeing Zelensky. For a man in his mid-70s who's undergoing cancer treatment, I think we can all agree that is quite a remarkable schedule of work.
I think we've all spoken a lot on this podcast about how the king, people around him describe him as a workaholic, and he has really found work, what they call a tonic, since he's been undergoing the cancer treatment. He really, really loves being busy, and he takes the job incredibly seriously. And we've seen this week how many engagements he has packed in, and how many significant engagements he's packed in.
I do think he gets his energy from meeting people.
Yes,
from a cross-section of the community, whether it be a pope or someone behind a sandwich bar. Yeah. I mean, he really gets his sort of sustenance.
And I know we touched on this last week, but actually this visit to Rome is the only sort of foreign trip that he's doing in the autumn. There's normally a big royal tour in the autumn, and let's remember this was rescheduled from earlier in the year because they couldn't do it because Pope Francis was particularly ill. So, but they've got a lot of incoming, as it were. They call them outgoing and incoming state visits. So we've already had the president of France and the president of America. That was quite a big one. And they've announced that the president of Germany, the head of state of Germany, is coming over in December. So they're saying, look, they're doing a lot of incoming at the moment, hence why this autumn's foreign tour was effectively only 24 hours long.
Ailsa, I want to ask you a question because I want to go back in time. We're going to go back in time into our archive.
Not until Henry VIII, was it?
No. It's not about you being press secretary to Henry VIII. No, not at all. To ask about, did you know when Catherine and William got engaged? Because us as members of the public didn't know for quite some time, because they actually got engaged when they were in Kenya, didn't they?
They did, but the announcement was made on 16th of November, and it was my daughter's first birthday. It's her birthday party. So I went to the press conference, and then I had to dash home and deal with half a dozen one-year-olds.
Yeah.
It was sublime to the ridiculous.
So can you remember the difference in time between them actually getting engaged in Kenya and them finally announcing it?
It was quite a period. I don't know whether you two remember.
It's about 3 weeks or something.
Was it?
I think.
Yeah.
Amazing they kept it a secret.
Yeah, so did you know, though?
I could not possibly.
I almost had you. I almost had you there.
That's why we invited you in.
Well, look, we actually spoke to them when they got engaged. Let's take a listen.
We're hugely excited, and it's we're looking forward to spending the rest of our times, rest of our lives together, and seeing what the future holds.
Okay, for you, you've had a long time to sort of contemplate this moment. Do you?
Let's not over-egg the long bit.
No, it's obviously nerve-wracking because I don't know what I'm sort of, I don't know the ropes really. William was obviously used to it, but no, I'm willing to learn quickly and work hard. And
She'll do really well.
Yeah.
I remember when he just pats.
You can see Kate there thinking, can I say I don't know what I've let myself in for? And then she sort of, no, I can't actually say that. So I don't know the ropes. She was overthinking every word that she was using through that interview. And a lot of people have commented on the difference between how relaxed Meghan was when she did her engagement with Harry, and how Kate's, that was her first kind of big appearance on the public stage.
I think anything she said would have been repeated. We remember when Charles was Prince when he proposed to Diana, and it was whatever love was, and that famous line.
So would they have practiced that whole thing before they sat on that sofa?
Oh, yes.
Wow. Was there an element of excitement in the palace that there
oh
was
my
an
God, tingling. Yeah, because we all have a happy ending. The prince has found his princess. It was fantastic.
And he really has. Wonderful. I mean, I think we've seen over recent years, but particularly over the last kind of couple of years, how strong their bond is as a couple and as a family. They are a really, really strong family unit, and we've seen that, quite quite public displays of affection and unity between them over the last year.
So the photo call before the interview or after the interview, however you choreographed it that day, was inside St James's Palace, wasn't it?
Yes.
I remember a big red room.
Yeah.
But the number of flashbulbs going off was, this is the kind of thing that we always have to warn viewers about, isn't it? Yeah. Because it was so many members.
It was like going on a red carpet. It really was. And it was. And also the goodwill with the media there. I mean, the room was absolutely jam-packed with photographers and journalists, and it was just really a moment. It really was.
And then a year later, we had the London Olympics. It was a really good feeling in the country at the time, and the Jubilee as well.
Yeah. Now it's interesting to talk about public displays of affection, PDAs, between the two of them, because I actually want to show the Queen and Prince Philip's engagement photo from back in 1947 to have a look there. And I can imagine that there must have been just the most amount of excitement in the palace when these two got engaged as well, and when they were sort of linking arms and what have you. And I can imagine that they, if it was moving picture, they would also be a little bit touchy-feely. Ailsa, what do you think?
He's just so handsome. Just looking at those photographs there, what a dashing naval officer he was, and she looks so thrilled. I mean, it's really heartwarming.
And it's going to be a while till we get another one, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, remember that was a very different time, 1947. We're just a couple of years after the end of the First World War, and the country needed a lift and a boost, and the engagement and then the subsequent wedding was exactly that, and it was a real big boost for the country.
I know, but we won't get a boost like that for quite some time, will we? Unfortunately.
Well, you can legally get married at 16, so then maybe that's for George.
We're not marrying George
4 years away if he wants.
We are not marrying on off early, not at all. We're not doing that at all.
Got to find the right person for him.
Well, guys, it's been wonderdon't to be back. I'd missed you. And also, Ailsa, it's such a joy to have you in the
studio.
Thank you
so much. Always. Absolutely.
Is it a busy week next week, guys?
Don't ask me that question because you asked me this last Thursday. I was like, it's fine next week.
But
I think there's still some mileage left in the Andrew story. I don't think we've heard the end of it, and I think it's got a way to go as much as Buckingham Palace doesn't want it to.
Yeah, but it's also something they don't really have that much control over, unfortunately. Yeah. So we shall see where we get to next week. But thank you so much. You can take those cannolis back with you. I shan't be eating any of them. But look, thank you so much for joining us. You can hear us doing Talking Royals every week by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, of course. And we've got that brilliant back catalogue of a range of royal topics to keep you interested until we see you again next week.